Good morning and welcome to our video today from Yoker Evangelical Church. Today it's Friday, March the 12th, and in our Bible readings this morning we read from Job chapter 41 and 2 Corinthians 11. I'm going to take a look at 2 Corinthians 11 in this video because I think it helps us to see something important about the church. Paul uses wedding imagery to help us see something important. Just listen to how he addresses the church in verse 12. In verse 2, I am jealous for you with a godly jealousy. I promised you to one husband, to Christ, so that I might present you as a pure virgin to him. Paul is picking up here on the language of the church as Christ's bride. And if the church is going to be Christ's bride, then our purity matters. Our purity for the wedding day matters. It's something that we, as a culture in general, have lost a little bit. But back in Paul's day, it would have been seen as beautiful and important that the bride was a virgin when she came to her wedding day. That she was pure as she came together with her husband. That would have been seen as something that was almost essential to the wedding being successful. And Paul here pictures himself as the one who will give this church in Corinth to Christ on their wedding day. As the bride comes together with Christ, Paul is the one who says, I give this church to Christ. And so Paul feels in himself some responsibility for the purity of the church. Just as Paul has devoted that church to Christ, he cares for them deeply. And he cares that they will remain pure and untainted for Christ their husband. Do you see the image? It's a wedding, and so Paul wants the bride, the church, to remain pure. But there is a danger to this. Have a look at verse 3. But I am afraid that just as Eve was deceived by the snake's cunning, your minds may somehow be led astray from your sincere and pure devotion to Christ. Paul sees that the church is in danger of accepting lies and so being led away from Christ. He pulls back to Genesis, the very first story in the Bible of Eve, the first woman who was deceived by a serpent and so walked away from God. And Jesus sees the same danger for the church, that it would be deceived and led away. He unpacks that a bit more in verse 4. For if someone comes to you and preaches a Jesus other than the Jesus we preached, or if you receive a different spirit from the spirit you received, or a different gospel from the one you accepted, you put up with it easily enough. Paul sees that the danger comes as the people start to accept a different Jesus, as they accept a different spirit, as they start believing in a different gospel. And I think Paul's message is clear, that we need to reject these false things, these false gospels that are put up. The Corinthians' mistake is that they tolerate it, they put up with it, and it enters their midst. And so Paul is concerned for their purity for Christ. We need to be clear on the gospel then. We need to know it and love it. We need to make sure that the truth about Jesus, the Spirit that he gives us, is that we understand it so that we can reject a false Jesus, so that we can ignore any false spirits, that we can refute a false gospel. And all this so that we can be presented pure for Christ. We need to long for purity in regard to the gospel we believe. Hold to that tightly and refuse any false gospels that come. We do this in the spirit of Paul, that same spirit he had, that we are concerned for our purity so that we might be an acceptable bride for Christ. I hope you have a good day today, and God bless.